Sustainable transport refers to a broad subject of transport that is sustainable or green using green energy in the senses of social, environmental, and climate aspects. Components of evaluating sustainability includes the particular vehicles used for the road, water and air transport, the sources of energy and the infrastructure used to accommodate the transport, e.g., roads, railway, airways, waterways, canals, and terminals. Transport operations and logistics, as well as transmitted oriented development, are also involved in evaluation. Transportation sustainability is largely being measured by transportation system effectiveness and efficiency, as well as the environmental and climate impacts of the system. Short-term activity often promotes incremental improvement in fuel efficiency and vehicle emissions controls, while long-term goals include migrating transportation from fossil-based energy to other alternatives such as renewable energy and use of other renewable sources. The entire life cycle of transport systems is subject to sustainability measurement and optimization. Sustainable transport systems make a positive contribution to the environmental, social, and economic sustainability of the communities they serve. Transport systems exist to provide social economic connections, and people quickly take up the opportunities offered by the increased mobility, with poor households benefiting greatly from low carbon transport options. The advantages of increased mobility need to be weighed against the environmental, social, and economic costs that transport systems pose. Transport systems have significant impacts on the environment, accounting for between 20% and 25% of the world energy consumption and carbon dioxide emissions. The majority of the emissions, almost 97%, came from direct burning of fossil fuels. Greenhouse gas emissions from transport are increasing at a faster rate than any other energy using sector. Road transport is also a major contributor to local air pollution and smog. The United Nations Environmental Programme UNEP estimates that each year 2.4 million premature deaths from outdoor air pollution could be avoided. Particularly hazardous for health are emissions from black carbon, a component of particulate matter, which is known to have caused the respiratory and carcinogenic diseases and a significant contributor to global climate change. The links between greenhouse gas emissions and particulate matter make low carbon transport an increasingly sustainable investment at local level, both by reducing emission levels and thus mitigating climate change, and by improving public health through better air quality. The social cost of transport include road crashes, air pollution, physical inactivity, time taken away from family while commuting, and vulnerability of fuel prices increases. Many of these negative impacts fall disproportionately on those social groups who are also least likely to own and drive cars. Traffic congestion imposes economic costs by wasting people's time and by slowing the delivery of goods and services. Traditional transport planning aims to improve mobility, especially for vehicles, and may fail to adequately consider wider impacts. But the real purpose of transport is access to work, education, goods and services, friends, family, and there are proven techniques to improve access while simultaneously reducing environmental and social impacts and managing traffic congestion. Communities which are successfully improving the sustainability of their transport networks are doing so as part of a wider program in creating more vibrant, sustainable cities. Sustainable cities, urban sustainability, green transport system, eco city is a designed designed consideration for social, economic, and environmental impact, normally referred to as triple bottom line, a resilient habitat for existing populations without compromising the ability of future generations to experience the same. The UN Sustainable Development Goal number 11 defines sustainable cities as those that are dedicated to achieving green sustainability, social sustainability, transport sustainability, and economic sustainability. They are committed to doing so by enabling opportunities to all through a designed transport system on inclusivity and a well maintaining sustainable economic growth. The focus also includes minimizing required inputs of energy in transport, water, and food, and drastically reducing waste output of heat, air pollution, carbon dioxide, methane, and water pollution. The UN Environment Programme calls out most cities to plan their transport and to make it more sustainable and make it more green today. As most cities today are struggling with environmental degradation, transport congestion, inadequate urban infrastructure, in addition to lack of basic services such as water supply, sanitation, and water management, a sustainable city should promote economic growth and meet the basic needs of its inhabitants while creating sustainable transport conditions. Ideally, a sustainable city and a sustainable transport network could create an enduring way of life across four domains of ecology and economics, politics, culture. The European Investment Bank normally assists cities in developing long term strategies in sustainable transport. Overbuilt roadways have experienced unintended consequences linked to radical drops in public transport walking and recycling. In many cases, streets became void of life. Stores, schools, government centers, and libraries moved away from central cities, and residents who did not flee to the suburbs experienced a much reduced quality of public space and public services. Sustainable transport policies have their greatest impact on the city level. Some of the biggest cities in Western Europe, for example, have relatively sustainable transport. In Paris, 53% of trips are made by walking, 3 by bicycle, 34 by public transport, and only 10% by personal cars. In the entire France region, for example, in de France, walking is most popular way of transportation. In Amsterdam, 28% of trips are made by walking, 31% by bicycle, and 18 by public transport, and only 23% by private cars. In Copenhagen, 62% of people commute to school and or work by bicycle. Outside Western Europe, cities which have consistently included sustainability as a key consideration in transport and land use include Brazil, Bogota, Colombia, Portland, Oregon, Vancouver, Canada, and Curitiba. The state of Victoria in Australia passed legislation in 2010 on transport integration to compel its transport agencies to actively consider sustainability issues, including climate change impacts in transport policy, planning, and operations. Many other cities throughout the world have recognized the need to link sustainability and transport policies, for example, by joining the Cities for Climate Protection program. Some cities are trying to become car free cities, e.g., limit or exclude the usage of cars within the city. In 2020, the COVID 19 pandemic pushed several cities to adopt a plan to drastically increase biking and walking. This included Milan, London, Brighton, and Dublin. These plans were taken to facilitate social distancing by avoiding public transport and at the same time prevent a rise in transport congestion and air pollution from increase in car use. A similar plan was adopted by New York City and Paris. Sustainable transport is fundamentally a grassroots movement, albeit one which is now recognized as a citywide, national, and international and of international significance. Whereas it started as a movement driven by environmental concerns, over these last years, there has been increased emphasis on social equity and fairness issues, and particular the need to ensure proper access of services for lower income groups and people with mobility limitations, including the fast growing population of older citizens. Many of the people exposed to the most vehicle noise pollution and safety risk have been those who do not own or cannot drive cars, and those for whom the cost of car ownership causes severe financial burden. An organization termed Green XC, started in 2011, created national awareness campaign in the US encouraging people to carpool by riding sharing cross country, stopping over at various destinations along the way, and documenting their travel through video footage, posts, and photography. Ride sharing reduces individual carbon footprints by allowing several people to use one car instead of everyone using individual cars. At the beginning of the 21st century, some companies are trying to increase the use of sailing ships, even more commercial purposes, for example, fair transport and new dawn traders. They've all created the Sail Cargo Alliance. There are various sustainable development goals that are promoting sustainable transport in order to meet the defined goals. These include SDG 3 on health, increased road safety, SDG 7 on energy, SDG 8 on decent work and economic growth, SDG 9 on resilient infrastructure, SDG 11 on sustainable cities, access to transport and expanded public transport, SDG 12 on sustainable consumption and production, ending fossil fuel subsidies, and SDG 14 on oceans, sea, and maritime resources. Car travel increased steadily throughout the 12th century, but trends since 2000 have been more complex. Oil price rises from 2003 have been linked to a decline in per capita fuel use for private vehicles travel in the US, Britain, and Australia. In 2008, global oil consumption fell by 0.8% overall, with significant declines in consumption in North America, Western Europe, and parts of Asia. Other factors affecting the decline in driving, at least in US, include the retirement of baby boomers who now drive less, preference for other travel modes such as transit by younger age cohorts, the Great Recession, and the rising use of technology, i.e., internet and mobile services, which have made travel less necessary and possibly less attractive. Several European countries are opening up financial incentives that support more sustainable modes of transport. The European Cyclist Federation, which focuses on daily cycling for transport, has created a document containing a non-complete overview. In the UK, employees and employers have for many years been providing people with financial incentives to buy bicycles. The employee leases or borrows a bike that the employer has purchased to use to come to work. You can also get other support schemes that are beneficial for employees who save money and get incentives to exercise integrated daily routine. The employer can expect a tax deduction, lower sick leave, and less pressure on parking spaces for cars. In 2010, there had been a scheme in Iceland where those who do not drive car to work get paid a lump of money monthly. An employee must sign a statement not to use a car for work more often than 1 day a week or 20% of days for a period. Some employers pay fixed amounts based on trust. Other employers reimburse the expenses for repairs on bicycles, period tickets for public transport, and the like. Since 2013, amounts of up to €8,000 per month have been tax free. Most major workplaces offer this, and significant proportions of employees use this scheme. Since 2019, half of the amount in tax free if the employee signs a contract not to use a car to work for more than 40% of the days of the contract has been used widely. The term green transport is often as a greenwash. The term green transport is often used as a greenwash marketing technique for products which are not proven to make a positive contribution to environmental sustainability. Such claims can be legally challenged. For instance, Norway Consumer Ombudsman has targeted automakers who claim that their cars are green or clean or environmental friendly. Manufacturers risk fines if they fail to drop the words. The Australian Competition and Consumers Commission describes green claims on products as very vague, inviting consumers to give a wide range of meanings to the claim, which risks misleading them. In 2008, the ACCC forced a car retailer to stop its green marketing on subcars, which was found by Australian Federal Court to be misleading. The EU Directorate General for Transport and Energy has launched a program which focuses mostly on urban transport, and its main measures are clean fuels in vehicles, collective passenger transport, sustainable green transport infrastructure, and access restrictions to car restricted zones or malfunctional areas and parking management. Another area of interest is alternatives to car use. Current technological development suggests that cars are used today will Current technological development suggests that cars used today will be replaced. Established alternatives to car use include cycling, walking, kick scooters, rollerblading, skateboarding, twikes, and electronic internal combustion motorcycles. Other alternatives are public transport vehicles like buses, guided buses, trolley buses, trains, subways, monorails, tramways, etc. Prior to the popularity of car use, which dominated motorized transport and consequently urban planning from around 1950s onwards, several transportation modes were used. Pedestrianism for both short and long distances was used, but also travel by horse, especially for long distances. Trams, especially powered trams, achieved widespread popularity in the 19th century. Carriages used for centuries are still used, but mainly for tourism. The public transport with the highest modal share countrywide is traveling by bus, followed by traveling by rail due to infrastructure cost. A pedestrian form of public transport is a walking bus, predominantly used by schools. An attempt to transform private transport by bicycle into public transport has been bicycle sharing schemes. Bicycle sharing systems have been implemented in over 1,000 cities worldwide and are especially common in many European and Chinese cities of all sizes. Similar programs have been implemented across the United States as well as including large cities like Washington, D.C. and New York City, as well as smaller cities like Buffalo, New York, and Fort Collins in Colorado. Personal rapid transit Personal rapid transit is a scheme that has been discussed in which small automated vehicles would run from special elevated tracks spaced with walking distance throughout a city and could provide direct service to chosen station without stops. However, despite several concepts existing for decades, personal rapid transport has failed to gain significant ground, and several prototypes and experimental systems have been dismantled as failures. The private transport is the highest model share worldwide that is unmotorized. It is pedestrianism followed by cycling. Another possibility is new forms of personal transport such as electric skateboard, electric kick scooter, personal transporters such as self-balancing unicycles, and others, which could serve as an alternative to cars and bicycles if they prove to be socially acceptable. Electric or internal combustion motorcycles, which also include scooters, are also an option. Internal combustion motorcycles do create some degree of local air pollution. However, that said, the degree of local air pollution varies considerably depending on which fuel is used. For example, gasoline, biogas, or hydrogen, which is injected into the internal combustion engine. This fuel can be freely chosen, and existing motorcycle engine can be converted to run on these. Hydrogen, for instance, is described as being near emissionless and burned in an internal combustion engine reduces air pollution. Also, velomobiles exist, including electric assisted versions, which which compared to regular bicycles have the benefit of being enclosed, hence protecting the driver from the weather, and potential of being motorized, which can allow a travel to greater distances at a faster speed. All of these alternative modes of transport pollute less than at least petroleum powered car and contribute to transport sustainability. They also provide other significant benefits such as reduced traffic related injuries and fatalities, reduced space requirements both for parking and driving, reduced resources usage and pollution related to both manufacturing and driving, increased social inclusion, increased economic and social equity, and more livable streets and cities. Some alternative modes of transport, especially cycling, also provide regular, low impact exercise tailored to the needs of human bodies. Public transport is also linked to increased exercise because they are combined in a multimodal transport chain that includes walking or cycling. According to the MIT Future Car Workshop, the benefits of possible future car technologies are not yet widespread. Increased mobility in rural settings and in some other areas where traffic jams are not severe is needed. Possibly higher social status in terms of transportation could also be considered. Automobile dependency and car dependency is a concept that most city layouts cause automobiles to be favored over alternative forms of transport such as bicycle, public transit, and walking. In many modern cities, automobiles are convenient and sometimes necessary to move easily. While it comes to automobile use, there is a spiral effect where traffic congestion produces the demand for more and bigger roads and removal of impediments to traffic flow. For instance, pedestrian signalized crossings, traffic lights, cyclists, and various forms of street based public transit, such as trams. These measures make automobile use more pleasurable and advantageous at the expense of other modes of transport, so greater traffic volumes are reduced. Additionally, the urban design of cities adjusts to the needs of automobiles in terms of movement and space. Buildings are replaced by parking lots, open air shopping streets are replaced by enclosed shopping malls, walking banks and fast food stores are replaced by drive-in versions of themselves that are inconveniently located for pedestrians. Town centers with a mixture of commercial, retail, and entertainment functions are replaced by single function business parks, category killer retail boxes, and multiplex entertainment complexes, each surrounded by large tracts of parking. This kind of environments require automobiles to access them, thus inducing even more traffic into the increased road space. This results in congestion and cycle above and the cycle above continues. Road gets even bigger, consuming even greater tracts of land previously used for housing, manufacturing, and other social and economic useful purposes. Public transit becomes less viable and especially stigmatized, eventually becoming a minority form of transportation. Automobile dependency is seen primarily as an issue of environmental sustainability due to the consumption of non renewable sources and production of greenhouse gases responsible for global warming. It is also an issue of social and cultural sustainability. Like gated communities, the private automobile produces physical separation between people and reduces opportunities for unstructured social encounters that is a significant aspect of social capital formation and maintenance in urban environment.